You know, the scariest stories aren't always the ones with ghosts or monsters, right? Sometimes they're those weird moments that happen to totally normal people. Moments that just don't make any sense, leaving you with this chilling question mark hanging over your head. So today, we're going to dive into what happens when reality just kind of breaks.
So what happens when you see something you just can't explain away? We're going to look at 3 true stories from people who came face to face with something that defied all logic. And it really makes you wonder, what are the limits of what we think we know?
All right, so here's where we've got lined up. First, a story about a flute in the woods. Then, we'll head to a hospital for a story called The Man on the Fifth Floor, and we'll wrap up with something truly terrifying, the voice from the basement.
Okay, let's get into our first story. The flute in the woods. This all goes down in a park in San Antonio, Texas. And let me tell you, it's one of those places, beautiful during the day, but at night, it has a whole other reputation.
So our narrator is just 18 years old, and he's on a date with his new girlfriend Clarissa, and for some reason, he thinks it's a great idea to go urban exploring in this park, which, by the way, has a really grim history. Oh, and it's 3 in the morning. Pitch black. They're not even using flashlights, trying to stay hidden and just let their eyes adjust.
They're walking for about 20 minutes, and the silence is just deafening. You know that feeling? It's oppressive. So to try and get back faster, our guy suggests taking a shortcut, a smaller, much darker trail that's supposed to loop back to their truck. And yeah, that's exactly when things get weird.
All of a sudden, they hear a flute out of nowhere. And it's not just someone messing around. It's a clear, rhythmic melody. Now, at first, the narrator is just kind of creeped out. But his date, Clarissa, she is terrified. I mean, she's trembling, she's praying, and seeing her pure panic is what flips a switch for him. He realizes this isn't just strange. This is actually dangerous.
So he's like, we gotta go, now! And they just bolt down this dark trail. But they don't get far. They hear this rustling, twigs snapping, and then something huge dashes across the path right in front of them. He can't see what it is, no shape or silhouette, but he says he could feel how big it was. And the weirdest part, the sound was just there for a second. No sound of it coming, no sound of it leaving, just gone.
Okay, so completely terrified, they whip around and sprint back the way they came, right back to where they first heard the flute. And what do you know, as if on cue, the music starts up again. But this time, it's not far away. It's loud. The narrator describes it as almost like a chiming Irish jig, and it sounds like it's right on top of them, like it's coming from every direction at once.
So just imagine this for a second. They are completely and utterly trapped. They have 2 choices, and both are terrible. Choice 1, go back down the off-road trail towards whatever that massive thing was. Choice 2, head down the main trail, directly into the sound of that mysterious, impossibly close flute music. What do you even do?
They pick the main trail, and they just run. Pure adrenaline kicks in, and what should have been a 20-minute walk turns into a 7-minute, all-out sprint for their lives. And at some point during the run, the flute music just fades away. They finally burst out of the trees, and there's their truck. And here's the kicker. It's the only car in the entire parking lot. No musician, no giant animal, just nothing.
Okay, wow. So that story is all about the fear of the unknown out in the wild. Our next story, The Man on the Fifth Floor, brings that fear indoors. We're moving from a dark park to the supposedly safe, sterile hallways of a hospital. But as one pharmacy tech is about to find out, terror can find you anywhere, especially when you're at your absolute limit.
So, get this. Our narrator is a pharmacy tech, and he's on the last night of a 7-day work stretch. Because of his schedule, he has been awake for almost 38 hours straight. And that's really the core of this story, right? It puts you in this weird spot. Is what he's about to see actually happening, or is it all just because he's dangerously sleep-deprived? And yeah, the night starts getting strange pretty fast. He's in the surgery room stocking medicine, and he hears a heavy door open and slam shut right behind him. He turns around, nobody there. A little later, he walks into a dark room and sees a figure, like hunched over a sharp spin, where they put the used needles. He flips on the light, and the person is just gone.
So he's trying to just shake it off, I'm just tired. He keeps doing his rounds and eventually makes his way up to the 5th floor. Now, part of this floor has been renovated, and it's totally deserted. No nurses, no patients, just empty, quiet, spooky hallways. So, of course, he decides to go check it out.
He's walking down this empty hall, and he hears a rattling noise coming from room 5512. He peeks inside and sees this absolutely horrific scene. There's an old man in the bed, seizing violently. There's blood coming from his eyes, his nose, his mouth. He's making this horrible gargling, groaning sound, and a heart monitor is just beeping like crazy. It is a full-on code blue, a massive medical emergency.
His instincts kick in. He pulls back for a split second, and then he just lunges for the room to try and help. But when he looks back in, it's all gone. The room is empty. The bed is perfectly made. The monitor is off. Nothing. Now he's convinced he's hallucinating and just bolts for the elevator. And as the doors open, an old man in a security guard uniform gets on with him. It is the exact same man from the bed. The old man pats him on the shoulder, and as the elevator doors close, he just smiles at him.
He somehow gets to the rest of his shift completely shaken up. His wife comes to pick him up, and as he's walking out of the hospital, he just happens to glance back up, and there, in the window of that empty, deserted wing on the 5th floor, is the same old man just standing there, watching him leave. Whether it was a hallucination or something else, that image was absolutely burned into his memory.
All right, so the first two stories had this kind of ambiguous, maybe supernatural vibe, right? Well, this last one, the voice from the basement, this one is terrifyingly real. We're going to a quiet neighborhood, to a story about a woman who's home alone for the weekend and finds out her house is not the safe place she thought it was.
Okay, so here's how it starts. It's the first night her boyfriend's away. She's watching scary movies with friends, the doorbell rings, nothing. Classic prank, right? But then her friends leave, and at 1 a.m., it rings again. Then she hears this clicking sound outside her bedroom window, a knock on the glass. And then a man's voice, clear as day, says, "I know you're home."
So naturally, she's terrified and calls the police. But the officer who shows up is just completely unhelpful. He's dismissive, rude, literally tells her to shush at one point. He basically does a quick, careless search, and then they leave. And now she feels even more alone and vulnerable than she did before.
So the next day, she tries to just forget about it, goes to a Halloween party. But when she gets home, it's after 1 a.m. again, and right away she feels this cold draft. She finds a window wide open, a window she knows she locked. And then she sees it. The door leading to the basement is wide open.
She's just frozen there, and that's when she hears a noise. It's this faint but very consistent clicking sound, and it's coming from downstairs, from the pitch-black darkness of the open basement. So, very hesitantly, she creeps over to the top of the stairs to get a better listen. She's peering down into just total blackness. All of a sudden, the clicking stops, and a man's voice comes up from the basement. It says, "You're finally home." She slams that door shut, runs for her life to a neighbor's house, and calls the police. Someone had been in her house the whole time, waiting.
A phantom flute player, a ghost in a hospital, an intruder in the basement. You know, all these stories, they tap into this really deep human fear, right? The fear of losing control, of logic just completely falling apart. We go through our lives assuming the world follows a certain set of rules, but the real horror in these stories isn't just what happened. It's that chilling thought that sometimes the rules just don't apply. And it makes you wonder, what would you do if the unexplained came looking for you?